When we look at both the Quran and Hadith, we see that Muslims are not simply instructed to pray more to fix things like feelings of depression. And in this episode, we're going to see some of the many religious recommendations given across both the Quran and the Hadith, as well as input from religious scholars to managing feelings of depression, sadness, and grief. Welcome back to FTD Facts. My name is Leroy Kenton, and this episode continues our series on Islam, which is our longest running series here on FTD Facts. But either way, in this episode, we're going to be looking at 10 surprising ways to help depression according to the religion of Islam. Starting at number 10. The Remembrance of Allah. The religion of Islam is all about making and keeping a connection with God. This is how Islam deals with sadness and worry. And according to the Quran, this is what it says. Those who have believed and whose hearts are assured by the remembrance of Allah. Unquestionably, by the remembrance of Allah, hearts are assured. And this is taken from Surah 13, verses 28. Now, moving on to number 9, there's unwavering faith in God. Now, it's important to note that there are 3 key points that will allow a believer in Islam to free themselves from their depression. Those are patience, gratitude, and trusting God. And the Arabic language, it's sabr, shukr, and tawakkul. First, let's look at patience. In the Quran, it says this: O you who have believed, seek help through patience and prayer. Indeed, Allah is with the patient. That's taken from Surah 2, verses 153. And then the Quran continues on in affirming this by saying, and we will surely test you with something of fear and hunger and loss of wealth and lives and fruits, but give good tidings to the patient. And that's from Surah 2, verses 155. Now, the second thing to look at is gratitude. And in the Quran, it says this: so remember me, I will remember you, and be grateful to me and do not deny me. And that's found in Surah 2, verses 152. And the third thing to look at, I mentioned, is trust in God. And the Quran speaks about this, and it says, if God helps you, none can overcome you. And if he forsakes you, who is there after him that can help you? And in God alone, let believers put their trust. And that's found in Surah 3, verses 160. Now, number 8 brings us to an interesting concept, the concept of looking at other people around you. This is actually something that can help depression. Now, the Prophet Muhammad is reported to have said these words: whenever you see someone better than you in wealth, face, or figure, you should look at someone inferior to you in these respects. And that's taken from the Hadith, Bukhari, and Muslim. Now, number 7, let's look at glad tidings. And we can find this reference in Surah 41, verses 30 to 31 of the Quran. It says, indeed, those who have said, our Lord is Allah, and then remained on the right course, the angels will descend upon them, saying, do not fear and do not grieve, but receive good tidings of paradise, which you were promised. We were your allies in the worldly life and in the hereafter, and you will have therein whatever your soul desires, and you will have therein whatever you request. Now, you see, it's taught that the objective of these verses is to mention the coming down of the angels on those who are struggling with their lives so that they are consoled and encouraged. This verse acknowledges the grief of people that they experience in this life, and once again, it shifts the focus and the perspective to an optimistic outcome, which is free of depression and anxieties. Next up at number 6, we look at hopefulness. Muslims are encouraged to resist negative thoughts with positive thoughts and actions if possible, or seek professional help if the case is clinical, exactly like any other form of illness. Now, we find a reference to this in the Quran, Surah 94, verses 5 to 6, and that says, for indeed with hardships will be ease. Indeed, with hardships will be ease. Islam also encourages people to stay hopeful. Even if somebody has committed the worst sin or is involved in a very difficult life event, there's always God's mercy to fall back on. Indeed, no one despairs of relief from Allah except the disbelieving people. And that reference is in the Quran, Surah 12, verses 87. Now, guys, since we reach halfway in this episode, I want to take this time to mention a related video. It's 10 halal ways to look more attractive in Islam. This one is a very eye-opening episode. I'll link to it below in the video description section for you guys to check out after this episode. Yeah, surprisingly, it's not necessarily what you think given the title. There's a much deeper aspect to the video. And as they say, when you look good, you feel good. So again, you can enjoy that one. The link to that is below in the video description section. So continuing on with this episode, we got to go to number 5 next, and that looks at trust. People who have patience and trust in God's decree will be given a reward from him. Now, in a hadith, Prophet Muhammad had said these words: "No Muslim is struck with an affliction and then says, 'Truly to Allah we belong, and truly to him we shall return,' when the affliction strikes, and then says, 'O Allah, reward me for my loss and give me what is better than it.' But Allah will do just that." Next up, at number 4, we look at meditation therapy. There are several stories from the hadith of the Prophet Muhammad isolating himself so that he could engage in deep contemplation or meditation practices. Now, the Quran does describe Muslims that are involved in such practices, and it says, "Who remembers Allah while standing or sitting or lying on their sides, and give thought to the creation of the heavens and the earth, saying, O Lord, you did not create this aimlessly. Exalted are you above such a thing. Then protect us from the punishment of the fire." And that's found in Surah 3, verses 191. So you see, there it points to the practice of meditation towards God, regardless of the situation that you find yourself in, whether you're standing or lying down or sitting down, whatever. Moving on to number 3, addressing issues. Apart from the religious practices and rituals, Muslims believe that when something bad is happening, the best solution is to change the situation. Sometimes depression is triggered by oppressive relationships, as well as unhealthy work boundaries or a negative self-talk that we sometimes put ourselves through. And when these types of issues are the cause of depression, Muslims should use their reason to identify the pros and the cons of a decision and to consult with trustworthy people. Now, over in the Quran, when we look at Surah 3, verses 159, we'll find this following passage. "So pardon them and ask forgiveness for them and consult them in the matter. And when you have decided, then rely upon Allah. Indeed, Allah loves those who rely upon him." Reading Surah Ad-Duha is at number 2. Surah Ad-Duha is Surah 93 in the Quran, and it is said to have been revealed at the time when Prophet Muhammad was depressed with the intention to comfort him. The surah reminds the Prophet Muhammad of the blessings that Allah has opened for him and asks him to help the poor and the needy and to make mention of the blessings of Allah upon him. And at number 1, it's only fitting that we end off on the note of seeking professional help. Now, we did mention this a little bit earlier in this episode, but let's elaborate a little bit more. Treating disease medically is legitimate, and it does not contradict reliance on God. The Prophet Muhammad has actually said these words in the hadith: "Use medicine, for God does not send an illness without sending a cure." And also, religious scholars often insist that individuals fulfill their obligation of using scientifically established medical procedures as a practical step in addition to asking God for assistance in their recovery. This helps to avoid a situation in which Muslims rely exclusively on prayer while avoiding vital medication and treatment. All right, guys, so we just took a look at 10 surprising ways to help relieve depression according to the religion of Islam. As you see, the religious teachings do not necessarily contradict those of medical teachings. In fact, it actually encourages medical treatment. Hope you found this episode useful and informative and entertaining. As always, I want to hear your thoughts and comments down below about anything that was shared in this episode. All right, guys, awesome hanging out with you in this episode. I look forward to sharing facts and information with you in another video. We love to look at the various different countries, cultures, religions, and people here on FTD Facts. So if those topics interest you and you haven't subscribed already, go ahead, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell to be notified when new videos are posted. All right, guys, until next time, stay awesome, stay educated, and I'll see you soon.